Hi guys, it's Shanae and welcome back to my channel, and today I am continuing my read-along for ErHa, otherwise known as Husky and his white cat Shizun, and it's volume 3. We just did the first read-along for volume 3 on Tuesday, so we're still relatively early on in the novel, and I'm very nervous because we've had, like, the first bit was quite a rough start in my opinion. I mean, I loved it, but also was definitely a rough start. Just a heads up, I thought it'd be a good idea to work on my novel, and I was doing world building. It took me 4 hours to get down, like, just the bare minimum amount of words, and because of that my brain is now fried, so we're gonna try and be human, but I make no promises, unfortunately. What is this? Okay. Anyway, so yeah, let me just grab my pillow and then I'm gonna give it like just a few minutes for people to show up in case there are notifications that are being sent out and people who want to join. And then we are gonna get started. Final thing that I also want to mention is I do need to like leave on the hour today, so we might finish early again. I'm really sorry about that, but it's just the things did not go the way they were supposed to, because I was supposed to actually have this live 2 hours ago, and that didn't happen because they were like boring a water hole right outside my window for the entirety of the day, so I had no ability to film at all. Anyway, okay, with all of that said, while we wait, we are on page 53, chapter 93. This venerable one, Shizun, who dares touch. Oh my word, that sounds scandalous. Also, if anyone would just let me know if the audio is okay, it should be fine, but it's always good to just get confirmation. And yeah, I have coffee here with me. We're going to be taking our 10-minute break on the hour, hopefully, and then I think that's all. I hope I said everything I needed to say. I feel like I've been talking non-stop for way too long. But yeah, okay. Let me give it like 1 more minute maybe, and then we can get going. And I don't know, I'm hitting a blank. I don't think there's anything else. But I did see somewhere that it seems like, I mean, there's murmurings, I should rather say, that maybe the live action for ErHa is coming out this year, but then again, that's what they've been saying every single year since like 2021, so I'm taking it with many grains of salt. At this point, I feel like it's a competition between what's going to finish first, the series or the volumes. But okay, I think we can get started. Okay. Chuaning's living soul roamed inside the barrier. Wherever he went, he found wandering ghosts and the shadows of lost souls. But the truly peculiar thing was the mangled corpses. The hearts of each and every one had been dug out before death. Well, if that isn't alarming. Their chests were empty, some with arteries and pieces of flesh dangling outside the hollow cavity. Ugh. Others with the white bones of the ribcage plainly visible. Sounds pleasant. Chuaning knew something was amiss here, but the defensive barrier around Butterfly Town was growing weaker by the moment, and he could not afford to tarry. He sped towards the Chen Manor. When he arrived, he found 4 cauldrons, each half the height of a man, placed outside the Chen Manor, in the 4 cardinal directions. Increasingly dense fumes poured from each cauldron in hues of red, blue, brown, and gold, rather than the typical white. Fires were lit under all 4 cauldrons, and each was filled to the brim with blood. Wonderful. Is he trying to, like, create super puppets or something with all the hearts that he has and the blood? Hi, morning! Yeah, oh, I didn't know that. Once he drew closer, Chuaning found that beneath the roiling blood was piled masses of red flesh. Human hearts. Great! Here were the hearts that had been ripped from the bodies of the deceased. The cauldrons were stuffed full of them. Great. We love it. Sand amassed into a tower. Chuaning muttered to himself. He suddenly understood why, even after searching for many weeks, they had found no track nor trace of that person's pursuit of spiritual essence. To think that lunatic would go this far. The so-called sand amassed into a tower was a technique whereby the hearts of hundreds of people possessing the same elemental essence were dug out and collected together. The resultant power, bolstered by the resentment of the dead, while not so strong as that of a true spiritual essence, would still be substantial for a short amount of time. But why Butterfly Town? Why Luoxianqian? Chuaning stepped into the Chen Manor, its courtyards and halls in disarray, and its contents and furnishings strewn across the floor. There he found landlord and Madame Chen swinging from the ceiling beams, both relieved of their hearts as well. This is so grim. However, unlike the townspeople outside, they had not reanimated for obvious reasons. Both bodies had been shredded to ribbons from the waist down by some savage force, and the mutilated mess no longer bore even a passing resemblance to legs. Chuaning made a circuit through the main hall, but did not find Luo Xianqian. He proceeded farther in. Within the Chen family's ancestral shrine room, he spied a bowl of ground meat set before each and every memorial tablet, as if an offering. A closer inspection revealed half an eyeball mixed into the meat, and a segment of a finger. I might be ill. Feeling bile rise to his throat, can relate. Chuaning made to leave when a burst of crisp laughter skittered down from above. His eyes snapped up. The white paper lantern swayed as the candles within flared to life one by one. Luo Xianqian sat on a ceiling beam, dressed in vivid red wedding robes and dangling a piece of bare feet as delicate as jade. She rocked gently back and forth, cocking her head as she contemplated Chuaning. She giggled. "Uh-oh, he found me." She looked no different from before, but beneath that gleeful expression, her soul was nothing like the bashful girl Chuaning had met back then. Her eyes were yet large and round, but they now flickered a demonic crimson. Arrogant and unbridled, blazing like a flame, Luo Xianqian had become a demon. Tianwen could interrogate a ghost but once, and Chuaning had already done so when he'd come to Butterfly Town to exorcise evil the first time. It wouldn't work on her again. All he could do now was suppress the demonic nature within her soul, call back her original consciousness, and attempt to speak to her then. Luo Xianqian, why are you here? As Chuaning spoke, the hidden hand in his sleeve was already preparing to unleash a spell. Because I feel like it, the petite girl spat. Not that it's any business of yours. Chuaning shook his head. His brows knitted so tight it looked like a scar had been carved between them. There, in the offering bowls. Is that Chen Bo Hyun's younger brother? Oh, him? Luo Xianqian spoke as if she couldn't care less. Only the row on the left. The row on the right is the little Yao bitch. Chuaning stared at her in shock. So many men in the world, and she had to steal my husband. Just because she's the governor's daughter, getting chopped into mincemeat is no more than she deserved. This is so grim. Luo Shen was too far gone. Her present temperament bore no resemblance to her manner in life, nor could she recognize the man before her as the Yanluo Gege who had once fought to exonerate her. Upon hearing that Madame Chen Yao had met the same fate, Chuaning's heart sank. Then, in a low voice, he pressed on. The young daughter of the Chens? She was kind to me. I wouldn't treat her poorly. Luo Xianxian smiled, her lips vibrant red, as if painted with blood. I'm assuming that by not treat her poorly, she just means that she killed her in a non-torturous manner, but she still probably killed her. She rubbed her belly and said gaily, "That's why she's in here. I ate her. Oh no! Oh no, 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 no. Mm-mm." Hard to suppress what I'm feeling right now. Ooh. Ugh. Yuck. Now little sis will always be with me, and no one will bully her. You've truly gone mad. A blinding light burst to life in his palm as he spoke. The flash of golden brilliance illuminated the dark corners of the room in an instant. Luo Shen yelped in surprise as Chuaning leapt up and flung a kiss unerringly onto her forehead. Demonic screeching filled the room. Chuaning wasted no time. In seconds he had summoned 10 golden chains to bind her. He pressed the tips of white and slender fingers to the center of her brow. Her eyes flickered with fire and lightning, expression dark as thunderous clouds. His thin, pale lips parted slightly as he wordlessly chanted an incantation. Luo Shen's eyes bulged, and saliva dripped from the corner of her mouth. Her once pretty face twisted into terrifying shapes under the power of the chanting. "Shut up, let me go. Blood for blood. I've done nothing wrong." Chuaning paid her no heed, eyes cool and downcast, as the light at his fingertips shone brighter and brighter. She began to shriek hysterically. "Let me go! Let me go! My head hurts! It hurts! I can't take it any more!" She screamed and wailed, then suddenly stopped. A sinister crimson lit her eyes, and the corners of her lips perked eerily upward. She snickered softly. "Is that what you were hoping to hear?" "Oh, great!" Startled, Chuaning yanked his hand away and leapt backwards, his phoenix eyes widening. There was a flurry of white. He dodged Luo Shenxian's soul-shattering strike just in time. The silk of his robes settled gently around him as he landed some distance away on the veranda. Luo Shenxian straightened slowly, her faked agony of seconds ago nowhere to be seen. The purification spell hadn't affected her in the least. If anything, she seemed even stronger than before. "Did you really think a measly purification spell could do me in?" Luo Shen sneered. "I've devoured the life force of more than 1,000 people in this town. I'm on the cusp of cultivating a body of flesh. And when I have it, I'll take my husband back from the underworld, and we'll leave this place, never to be parted again. How could I possibly let you ruin it for me when I'm so close? This is so grim." The Luo Shen of before was gone. All she knew now was her desire to be forever with Chen Huan. An idea occurred to Chuaning. In a low voice, he asked, "Who told you that you could cultivate a body this way? What's it to you?" "Whoever it was, he lied," Chuaning replied coldly. "The original body was no more. The only way to acquire another is through the cycle of reincarnation. Achieving rebirth by consuming the life force of 1,000 people? There's no such thing. He tricked you into slaughtering the townfolk so that he could gather their hearts for his own ends." Luo Shen's eyes were wide with shock. "Impossible! He wouldn't lie to me." "Who is he?" He's... She mumbled over and over. She clutched her head and shrieked, I don't know. I want a body. I want to live. I don't want to die. He didn't lie to me. He didn't lie to me. You're the one who's lying. That's right, you're the one lying. With a swirl of red silk, the ghost rushed towards Chuaning, claws extended. Just then, an ominous boom thundered from the skies above. Chuaning dodged Luo Xinshen's attack. Chuaning dodged Luo Xinshen's attack and looked up to discover a long, narrow crack in the defense barrier, which could no longer stand before the overwhelming resentful energy of the town. The life energy of those outside seeped in through the gap, and all throughout the town came the roars of the undead. I'm terrified. The barrier was about to break. He was out of time. If he didn't recover Luo Xinshen's consciousness soon, he would have no choice but to kill her, and with her, their lost lead. Oh, damn. Outside the barrier, Li Wuxin stared up at the horrifying crack in midair. Are we still not mending the barrier? He yelled at Shi Zhengyong. We gotta start repairing it. If it breaks and 1,000 walking dead rush out at once, there's no way we can hold them back. Just a little while longer. Shi Zhengyong was similarly grim, and large droplets of sweat beaded on his forehead. Don't mend it just yet. Yu Heng is still inside. Wait just a little while longer. Li Wuxin cursed under his breath. His heart beat wildly at the sight of this barrier cracking like an egg. He snarled, "If the barrier fails, how much blood do you think will be spilled? How will you answer the entire cultivation world then?" He whipped around and bellowed at his disciples. "Have the calls for aid been sent? When will the other sects arrive?" The disciple handling the messages was drenched in a nervous sweat. The other 8 great sects all said that it's a serious matter that must be reported to their respective sect leaders first and foremost. So you're gonna delay it for that? The sect leaders and elders will have to discuss it before any aid can be sent. Li Wuxin's face darkened further. What about Rufeng's sect? Nangong Xianzhang has always been metal. I'm assuming this was supposed to be meddlesome, but it says metalsome. Surely he, of all people, isn't so spineless. As the disciple searched for words to respond, the communication talisman began to glow once more. He skimmed it quickly and announced, overjoyed, "Rufeng's sect is coming. They just sent word. They are sending people as we speak." Sure enough, within 10 minutes, a wall of blue clouds appeared on the horizon. As they drew closer, those watching saw that these were not clouds at all, but a drove of nearly 1,000 cultivators, each clad in blue mantle emblazoned with the Rufeng sect's heron, and soaring through the sky on swords and lying in strict formation. At their head was Nangong-se and Ye Wangxi. Nangong-se rode astride his fey wolf now Bai Jin, a jade bow on his shoulder and a full quiver across his back. He had an imposing air about him, the arrogance and intemperance of youth writ across his face. Ye Wangxi was dressed all in black as before, with a cloak embroidered with Rufeng's heron thrown over top. He looked 7 parts handsome, 3 parts beautiful. That's an interesting description. What is this? Nangong-se saw the sorry state of the barrier and promptly blew his top. His furious gaze scanned the crowd, skipping over every person from the lower cultivation realm's Sishan Peak to land on the only individual remotely fit to be addressed by him, the leader of Bitan Manor. "Li Wuxin, do you not see that crack in the barrier? What are you doing just standing around down here? Don't you know how to mend it?" "Sure, please come in here and just immediately assume that you know everything and anything about the situation." Li Wuxin was Nangong-se's senior by a long shot, but Nangong-se was the sole heir to the foremost sect in the cultivation world. Liu Shun could only grin and bear it, even as his entire face flushed red at the admonishment. Young Master Nangong, I must inform you that the barrier remains in disrepair only at Shu Zhangmen's insistence, and with that the hot potato was tossed to Xu Zhengyong. Wow. Surgeon Peak? Nangong Se glanced at Xu Zhengyong and let out a perhaps of contempt. He waved a hand and turned to his personal attendant. Go patch up the crappy pot. All this yammering had me thinking it was something serious. Ye Wangxi tried stopping. Young master, but Nangong Se wouldn't spare him so much as a glance. Even stranger, Song Chutong had come as well. Her face was obscured behind a veil of white silk, and her eyes were downcast, as demure and obedient as ever. But today she stood beside Nangong Se rather than Ye Wangxi. Oh, that might be important. Sect was nothing if not expeditious, and they obeyed none but their own leaders. This was especially true if the personal attendants of Nangong Se. The group of them stepped up in sync, completely ignoring any attempt at explanation, and immediately set about laying down the seals and arrays to mend the barrier. Wait! Xu Jingyong interrupted 4 or 5 people's attempts in succession, yet when he turned around, another had already formed and mended the mending seal and sent it flying in a streak of blue light towards the crack in the barrier. The blood drained from Xu Jingyong's face. Yu Heng! There was a sudden bang, and sparks flew. In the breath before the seal reached the crack in the barrier, it was cleaved in two by a flash of crimson like a bolt of bloody lightning. Please tell me that was Moran. All heads snapped up to see a young man standing on his sword in midair before the barrier, a length of willow vine in his hand. His features were bright and friendly, as if naturally bathed in warmth. But at this moment his eyes were sharp and unyielding, his gaze flaring like the leaves of the vine in his hand, coursing with a light the scarlet of blood, and erupting with sparks. High above them, Moran's brows were drawn low in a frown. Didn't I say that no one has touched this barrier? He asked darkly. Tell me, are you deaf or stupid? He may have loathed Chuaning, but that was between the two of them, be it in his past life or this one. On pain of death, he would never permit anyone but himself to touch so much as a hair on Chuaning's head. He'd said it before, only he was allowed to kill the one he hated, the only one allowed to ruin him, to torment him. In his fit of rage, the savagery of his past life reared its head, bleeding through into his demeanor in a stark departure from his usual attitude of the playful and easygoing young master. Xu Zhengyong, Xu Meng, and even Shimei were taken aback, to say nothing of the disciples of Wu Feng's sect. I'm excited. I'm worried, but I'm excited. Okay. Let me just grab something to drink. Okay. Chapter 94, This Venerable One Sees the Heavenly Rift Again. Oh, great. A look of displeasure crossed Nangong's face, his gaze dark like rolling molten iron. He looked over and his eyes snagged on a blazing red of Moran's holy weapon before moving on. Who's that? He's the Gongsi from Shizun Peak, surname Mo. Ye Wangxi replied. Mo? Nangongse knitted his brow slightly. The one that was picked up off the street some years ago? Nangongse cast Ye Wangxi a sidelong glance. You know him? We resided in the same courtyard at Peach Blossom Springs. Nangongse sneered. There was no telling what he meant by it, but when Ye Wangxi saw his reaction, his quietly handsome face paled, his lashes lowering, and he pursed his lips and fell silent. He was going to keep waiting, but I may as well grant him some face, Nangungso said. A master of a holy weapon is at such a young age. I've got to see what he's made of. Oh, great. Moran, however, had no attention to spare for the Rufang sect members. He turned back towards the town, his robes whipping in the wind. The barrier had already cracked. There wasn't much time left. Chuaning, are you not done yet? Luo Xianxian's nails ripped through the silk curtain, the white cloth fluttering, and the plain fabric was shredded into countless pieces of falling snow. Chuaning sensed a remarkably familiar presence, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Finally, his eyes widened. Tianwen? No, it wasn't Tianwen. But as he exchanged blows with her, he felt it, an energy that was incredibly like Tianwen's emitted from her person. The inner curtains of the sprawling Chen household were like a fine mist, and locked within were a living soul and a vicious ghost. They exchanged a dozen moves. With each blow, the fog in Chuaning's mind cleared a little more, until he came to a sudden realization. With this, everything made sense. Heart plucked below. Luo Xianxian was already dead, her body cremated to ashes. During their first encounter, she'd had to make use of Madame Chen's body to haunt the family. Why then was she able to show her true form now? That mysterious man had taken a withering branch of heart-plucked willow and fabricated a temporary shell for her soul to inhabit. The boiling hearts of the townsfolk outside the streaming haze of color fumes. Metal, water, fire, earth, they were only waiting for wood. Luo Xianxian's body, made from the heart-plucked willow. What was that man planning? I don't know, but I'm stressed. Had he gone to so much trouble only so that Luo Xianxian could regain her flesh body and slaughter her way into the ghost realm to be with Chen Bohun? Once more? Who would go to such lengths for her? She had no living relatives after all. Relatives. A relative. A memory stirred in Chuaning's mind, and his blood rushed through his veins. He recalled, back when he first met Luo Xianxian, she had told him something. She had a brother who had gone missing many years ago. Was it him? All in my path shall die. Right now, Luo Xianxian had a body of flesh, while Chuaning was merely a living soul. While her spiritual powers couldn't compare to his, she was solid and he was air. For the moment, they were evenly matched. In the blink of an eye, her blood-red nails came lunging for his heart. Chuaning swiftly dodged to avoid damage to his soul, then flipped his palm and tapped the spot between her brows. It's useless. Try it as many times as you like. The purification spell can't harm me. She laughed savagely, throwing her head back to howl at the heavens. All around them, bands of corpses in Butterfly Town hearkened to her cry. All ye wandering spirits, heed my command. Come ye forth to feast on flesh and slake your thirst with blood. Oh! Terrifying wails and howls suffused the air. Butterfly Town had sunken into complete pandemonium, and the frenzied, heartless undead came scurrying into the Chen Manor at her summons. The walking corpses poured in like a flood, shrieking and roaring, like chasing waves toppling under the howling winds. The blood-curdling cries were like the screams of a battlefield, and all at once everyone both inside and outside the barrier could hear them with awful clarity. Outside the barrier, the cultivators stood shaken. Inside, Chuaning battled all alone. There was only his silhouette, his lone soul, a streak of white standing before Luo Xianxian. I am stressed. I had a thought. What was it? Oh, I was wondering if Shimei was maybe her brother, but then, because I'm trying to remember if he started acting strange after um, Butterfly Town, or was it like way after that, so it couldn't have had anything to do with Butterfly Town, or was it before it? I don't know. Um, she laughed in glee, madness and wretchedness flooding the depth of her eyes. But a gentleman is like bamboo, with unbending integrity, and Chuaning remained unfazed even in the face of hundreds of ghosts. Only his brows were drawn deeply together, a layer of gloom darkening his eyes. Luo Shenxian, do you remember what you once told me? Hmm? She hadn't expected him to ask such a question, and was a bit taken aback. Chuaning took advantage of her momentary confusion to leap to the roof of the Chen Manor's courtyard in a flutter of white robes. His silk boots, pristine and untainted, landed lightly on the edge of the black sandalwood eaves. You once told me that you never wanted to become a vicious ghost. You said you didn't want to hurt anyone. As the pitch of his voice dropped, the wind below began to rise around them. Chuaning looked up to see corpses swarming towards them from every direction. He knitted his brows slightly and raised his hands, his broad sleeves fluttering in the haunting winds. Between his hands shone a golden glow. Forgive me. At once, thousands of willow vines shot up from the ground. Gash after gash opened in the earth beneath the flowing rivers of blood and throngs of corpses in the butterfly town. As sturdy willow trees burst through. But before we do that, because I'm starting to panic. So theoretically, the person was waiting for the wood, the willow vine, and Chuaning assumed that he was waiting to sacrifice Luo Xianxian or something like that. But what if he was goading Chuaning into lending Tianwen for his means and purposes? Am I thinking too much? Oh, I'm stressed. Okay. Where am I now? The vines gleamed a blinding gold, like countless shimmering chains, and bound every fleeing corpse in their tendrils. Chuaning's eyes were closed, his long hair whipping wildly before a face as cold as snow melt in a mountain stream. Tianwen, he called in a grim face. 10,000 coffins. His eyes flashed open, blazing like lightning. Those rows upon rows of golden weeping willows glowed brilliantly, and innumerable branches sprouted and grew in dense numbers, trapping the walking corpses. They roared and struggled. In the next second, a gap creaked open in every willow tree. As the holes widened, the trees dragged the dead into the dark and brutal seals. Um, in, what into the dark and brutally sealed them within 10,000 coffins. The largest weeping willow of all sprouted from the courtyard of the Chen's household. Fast as the sharpest arrow, its vines flew after the dodging Luo Xianxian. However, the girl currently had a body made from the heartpluck willow herself. Heartpluck willow, Tianwen, Jianjue, all branches from the same heavenly tree, brought to the mortal realm by the exalted Guchen. Thus, the 10,000 coffins of Tianwen couldn't immediately overtake the small and swift shadow of Luo Xinxian. The gold-embroidered phoenix on her vivid red wedding robes rolled in the turbulent winds as the giant willow darted after her, pulling itself from the ground, up and up, breaking through the barrier and stretching towards the skies above. Oh no. On the other side of the barrier, the crowd was shocked into silence by the sky-shattering tree. Those with less spiritual power couldn't endure it. Their legs went weak at the Zongshi's oppressive presence, and they fell heavily to their knees. The willow tree formed from Tianwen's spiritual energy grew taller and taller until it seemed it would reach even the luminous moon itself. Chuaning had unleashed his spiritual power to a degree hitherto unseen. Among the cultivators surrounding Butterfly Town, there were many whose eyes were bloodshot, and even Nan Gongsi was, with all his cultivation, found it difficult to breathe. His chest tight and his heart beating rapidly, he gritted his teeth. A character like this exists at Shizun Peak? Who is this Yuheng elder? That's what you get for looking down on people. Next to him, Li Wuxin remained unrifled. He was at the head of a sect, after all. He could handle this much. Nan Gongzi, this man is Chuaning, I tell you. What? This startling news, on top of the already intense spiritual pressure, was too much. Nan Gongzi choked and spat out a mouthful of blood. It's Chu Zongshi? Young master, please don't speak anymore. Seeing that he was hurt, Ye Wangxi raised a hand and pressed 2 meridian points on Nan Gongzi's body to help him circulate his spiritual powers. Yet, unexpectedly, Nan Gongzi wasn't grateful in the slightest. He pushed Ye Wangxi roughly away and wiped the blood from his lips. Oh, great. Don't touch me. Ye Wangxi fell silent. Ye Gongzi, allow me. Song Chi-tong nominated herself in a small voice. Being a butterfly-bone beauty feast, she wasn't greatly affected. She stepped forward gracefully, her lovely eyes delicate and fearful as she gazed at Ye Wangxi. Yet this time, Ye Wangxi didn't seem so friendly as he had been when they'd first met. He completely ignored her. Having received the cold shoulder, Song Chi-tong turned to gaze at Nan Gongzi with tear-filled eyes. Nan Gongzi's attitude towards her was much improved compared to their first encounter, but he too declined. Your help isn't needed. I am merely shocked to hear of someone I haven't seen in so many years. I'm not that weak. If you have free time, go help others. From where he stood, Moran didn't notice at all this exchange between Song Chi-tong and the 2 Gongzis of the Rufeng sect. He dropped down beside Chuaning's vacant body, lifting his head to watch Chuaning's living soul engage in the heat of battle. With Luo Xianxian within the barrier, he looked at that army of corpses temporarily sealed by thousands of willow trees, his heart and mind surging with alarm and anxiety. To use a spell like this, even under normal circumstances, would exhaust one's spiritual power, and moreover, Chuaning's soul was currently outside his body. Just how ridiculously powerful was this man? Before Moran could finish the thought, an ear-splitting cry rent the air. In the end, the heart-plucked willow was no match for Tianwen. Beneath the lonely moon, Luo Xianxian was bound by the willow vines, branches and leaves sprouting fast and swallowing her rapidly. That colossal sky-scraping tree enveloped her completely within its trunk. Finally, the ancient willow that had touched the clouds shrank slowly towards the ground, gradually descending until it stood equal once more with the other willows. By now, the barrier had been completely shattered, but since the 10,000 coffins conjured by Tianwen still held the scores of walking corpses hostage, the danger was still held at bay. Thank goodness for Chuaning just being awesome. Even so, Xu Zhengyong didn't dare relax his guard and ordered Shizun Peak's people to stand sentinel before every willow tree. As for the others, they dashed straight for the courtyard of the Chen Manor. In such a dire situation, Moran didn't think twice. He immediately swept up Chuaning's cold body into his arms and rushed over with the rest. When the group arrived, the ancient willow chaining Luo Xianxian had transformed into a coffin. The girl lay within, her expression fluctuating between savagery and sorrow, her eyes sometimes vicious, sometimes aggrieved. 2 distinct voices spilled from her lips, switching from one to the other. The first was full of madness as it raged. Why do you obstruct me? Why do you obstruct me? You all deserve death, every last one of you. The other voice was soft and helpless. Yanlua Gurga, is it you? Is it you who's come? Please, I beg you, save me. I don't want to hurt people. Please. The two voices rose and fell, both back and forth, until after a long while silence reigned within the coffin. At this point, the spiritual power of Chuaning's living soul was at its limit. He was barely holding on. Yet, relying on his will alone, he pressed his fingers between the brows of the girl in the coffin. Speak thy name. The ghost girl slowly opened her eyes. There was still that violent red. Watch out! Li Wuxin blurted. Just as he was about to charge forward and end the maiden's life, Chuaning pointed a finger, and a bolt of lightning cracked down in Li Wuxin's path, stopping him in his tracks. Chuaning, you! Chuaning ignored him. His eyes were locked on the delicate girl as she haltingly sat up in the willow coffin. No trace of killing intent lay in her blood-red eyes. Instead, they were full of panic and loss as she said softly, I am Luo Xinxian. When Chuaning heard her answer, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. His lashes fluttered close as the projection of his living soul faded. A moment later, the man in Moran's arms twitched gently. Moran quickly set him down, propping him against a pillar in the courtyard. He got down on one knee, bringing himself to Chuaning's level. Shizun, are you back? Chuaning's phoenix eyes were dazed, and it was several seconds before they regained their focus. He glanced at Moran. Chuaning had depleted his spiritual power too greatly. He was a man with a weak spiritual core to begin with, and he now appeared somewhat frail, his face no less pale than when his soul had walked free from his body. Chuaning responded. He leaned against the pillar for a spell, then rose gingerly to his feet, using the pillar for support. With slow steps he came before Luo Xinxian and lowered his gaze to look at her. Luo Xinxian's small mouth parted slightly as she stared at him in shock. Yanluo Gege, why am I here? What happened? First things first. Chuaning's body was weak, but his eyes were still bright and sharp. He cut straight to the heart of the matter. Tell me, who was it that fabricated your body? Do you remember? It's extremely important. Chuaning waited tensely, his nails nearly cracking with how hard he was digging them into the stone pillar. I can't remember very clearly, but I have some impressions, Luo Xinxian mumbled. It was a man, he. Next to them, Shimeng was getting impatient. Think harder. Luo Xinxian racked her brain, digging through her memories. At the time, everything was hazy. I didn't see his face clearly, but I heard his voice. He had a bit of a northern accent, I think. Maybe. Ah! She cried. Terror filled her face. I remember now. It's him! It's him! The tangerine thief. Why did I think it was him and I didn't say it? Everyone over there telling me, oh no, the tangerine thief is not someone to worry about. Apparently not. Apparently he is very much someone to worry about. The tangerine what? Shimeng grumbled. What nonsense! However, Chuaning understood at once. She meant that madman she had encountered as a little girl, the one who had chopped down the tangerine tree. There was a man from Lin Yi whose heart died at 20. Who was it? Lin Yi. Lin Yi. It couldn't be Wu Feng Sect, could it? Was it? Right then, a crisp clap of thunder exploded across the heavens, and the Zhenlong chess formation that spanned the sky over Butterfly Town flashed red. I'm assuming it's about to murder Luo Xinxian's spirit so that she can't reveal anything more. Not good, Shi Jingyong shouted. Everyone keep watch on the 10,000 coffins. The creator of the formation has probably noticed we're here by now. Something's coming. Sand flew and debris scattered, and the smoke and dust began to rise from all around. Every cultivator in Butterfly Town was on high alert, their backs pressed against one another as their long swords held before them. Chuaning's eyes darkened, and he turned to Luo Shenchen. Get up. That man left a white chess piece inside your body. Don't let him control you any longer. I'll help you purge it. Once that white piece falls, leave immediately. Go to the underworld and return to the cycle of reincarnation. You must not linger in the mortal realm. As he spoke, light gathered in his palm, and he clapped it to Luo Shenxen's chest. But as the spiritual energy passed through her, there was no sign of any white piece from the Zhenlong chest formation. Chuaning froze. A chill rushed up his spine like the quick flash of a spark. He sensed danger. Go, quickly, he shouted, but it was too late. A sharp scream tore through the air. The heart of the Zhenlong chest formation in the sky above glowed with a bloody red light and struck like lightning right into Luo Xinqian's willow-crafted body. The ground rumbled, and fiery light roared to the skies. I'm stressed. Luo Xinqian, the girl's silhouette rapidly contorted into the sea of fire, and in a split second, a wisp of a fragmented soul rose to the sky and mixed with the burning miasmic fumes. The soul mingled with the fumes into a single entity. Where Luo Xinxian once stood, a stream of jade green light now shot towards the heavens. A spiritual essence of wood? The blood drained from Chuaning's face, and his eyes flashed with hostility. He'd been thinking about this all wrong. He'd been thinking about this thing the wrong way. While alive, Luo Xinxian must have been someone who possessed great wood elemental spiritual energy. The villain behind the scenes wasn't making an offering of the metal, fire, water, and earth elements to the wood element's heart-pluck willow. Rather, he was waiting for the enormous miasma of resentment to coalesce into the crash of thunder and strike Luo Xinxian's body, transforming her resentful spirit into an energy source for what was left of the heart-pluck willow. This poor girl, she did not deserve that. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. All 5 elements were now assembled. This person had everything they needed. Chuaning lifted his head and looked to the sky. Everyone was looking at the sky. Everything stopped. It was horribly, terrifyingly still. Suddenly, the earth began to quake. It was all too like what he and Moran had seen in the ancient city of Lin'an, in the illusion at Peach Blossom Springs. Above Butterfly Town, a titanic purple-black rift rent the night sky. Within, they beheld endless bloody chaos, death, pestilence, hatred, as if the eye of the devil himself slowly opened before them. Li Wuxin pointed at the rift. The infinite hells, he cried, voice trembling. The barrier to the infinite hells. It's broken. The firmament above Butterfly Town is torn. The door to the ghost realm is open. This is a mess. What concerns me is the fact that we're at volume 3 now. It's been revealed that there's going to be 11 volumes. So what the hell else is going to happen? Because this, by normal book standards, would be the start of the climax. But we're not even halfway through the novel. I'm stressed. I'm very stressed. Okay, chapter 95, This Venerable One's Calamity from His Past Life. Ooh! Interesting, okay. The thin boundary separating the world of the yin from that of the yang was far from the sturdy barrier it had been in ancient times. Occasional tears and gaps were such a common occurrence these days that they barely registered alarm within the cultivation world. But now a bloody eye had ripped straight across the heavens, bathing the sky and earth alike in an unusual, eerie hue as debris whipped through the sky. A once-in-a-generation calamity, the heavenly rift. None present save Moran had ever personally witnessed such an immense catastrophe, be it the white-haired Li Wuxin, the battle-seasoned Xu Zhengyong, the upper cultivation realms Rufeng sect, or the lower cultivation realms Sishan Peak. Every one of the 1,000-some people gathered before Butterfly Town were aghast, without any idea of what to do. So I'm assuming that this is the same issue that originally in the previous lifetime led to Shimei's death. So we'll see if that's the case, what it amounts to now. Okay, Moran felt like he had been struck by lightning. The thick stench of blood from his past life washed over him, the ruthless massacre, the endless spilling of blood. This was it, that very same heavenly rift. In his previous lifetime, this was where Shimei died. He and Chuaning had worked together to repair the barrier. But his limited spiritual energy had made him vulnerable, and he was attacked by masses of ghosts and demons pouring from the rift, and fell from such a height. But that wasn't supposed to happen yet. Not for another 3 years. Moran remembered that snowy night with such clarity. It had been just after New Year's Eve. Scraps of red from the spent firecrackers had littered the snowy ground, and the faint smell of smoke lingered in the air. He had celebrated the new year with everyone else the night before, indulging in the tusu wine reserved for the occasion. Moran looked up, slightly tipsy. In the warm glow of the candlelight, Shimei's eyes were like the waters of spring, tender and affectionate from every angle. Sishan Peak was alive with laughter and merriment. He had thought back then that this was wonderful, that even if he never ended up acting on his feelings towards the person he liked, he'd be content to stay by his side for a lifetime and watch over him from a distance, just like this. The festivities came to a close, and the disciples drifted back to their quarters. He and Shimei left Ningpo Hall together, their path lit by the moonlight reflected on the snowy ground. Shimei looked a little cold, so Moran shrugged off his outer robe and draped it over his shoulders without a word. Emboldened by the alcohol coursing through his body, he'd snuck a few more glances than usual. Beauty like new fallen snow, pure and untouchable. Aram? You drank a little too much today. Did I? Ha! The rest of Moran's laughter died in his throat. Shimei had cupped his face with a chilly hand, making his already warm cheeks burn hotter. Moran's eyes were opened wide, and a tremor ran through his body. Shimei said with a smile. Look at you. 3 cups and your face is all red. It's just kind of hot. Moran scratched his head goofily, his face aflame. He had been so easily satisfied back then. Simply liking someone was enough. He didn't need his feelings returned, didn't dare to dream of more. That person had merely touched his face, yet he felt like he had been blessed by the heavens. He stared in a daze, words abandoning him. His inky black eyes glistened with wonder and gratitude. The two bid each other good night before the disciple quarters. Before leaving, Shimei turned to smile at him, draped in Moran's robe, and backlit by the enchanting glow of the moonlight on snow. Aran? Moran had already turned to leave, but at the sound of his name he whipped around in a fluster, like a spinning top for fear of missing something. Yes? Thanks for lending me your robe. It's nothing. I was hot anyway. And Shimei's gaze grew even softer, so warm it seemed it could chase away the long winter. Aran, actually, oh no, was this an interrupted confession? That's so sad. A firework exploded in the distance. Moran didn't catch what he said, or perhaps Shimei didn't actually say anything more. By the time it was again quiet, Shimei was already pushing open the door to his room. Wait, Moran called out, panicked. What did you just say just now? Shimei was uncharacteristically playful, blinking his eyes as he teased. Good things can only be said once. Shimei! But that alluring person did not relent. Only the lower half of his elegant face was visible beneath the cold-proving curtain, bearing a soft smile that Moran would remember for the rest of his life. This is sad. It's late, he said. I'm going to bed. If I still feel like telling you in the morning. Shimei paused, soft lashes drooping like feathery mimosa leaves. Interesting description. I'll tell you then. Who could have known morning would bring with it the heavenly rift? In the end, Moran never got to hear the rest. The most tender dream of his life died a bloody scarlet. How many times had he dreamt of that smile on Shimei's face beyond the half-raised curtain, of its beauty and gentleness? Perhaps he'd only imagined it, but he'd felt that smile had held a boundless feeling. Time and again, over the course of his painful life, he dreamt the rest of that dream. In his dream, Shimei would say that he liked him. Moran would wake up grinning, happy, so happy that for a moment he would forget Shimei was dead. That there was no turning back. Oh my word, I can't cry. I can't. Still, grinning happily, he would contemplate the rest of their lives together, contemplate what delicious foods he would make for his beloved. Such important matters were worth putting some thought into, after all. But then, grinning and grinning, tears would start to roll. He would bury his face in his hands. He would never hear the words that had scattered into the wind on the snowy New Year's Eve. Damn, okay. So, we're at a scene break. So I think I'm just quickly gonna take the 10-minute break now, and then I'll check back in with you guys at 8 past. Sorry about that. Okay. Oh, people arrived. That is, suddenly there's a lot more people than when I left. Okay. Sorry about that. For anyone new here, hi! For anyone new here who wants to follow with the book, we are on page 80, I think. Sorry, 81. Okay. Ripping through the thousands of miles of heavy... Okay, let me not immediately start off struggling. Let's try that again. Ripping through the thousands of miles of heavy clouds, the infinite hells yawned open. Evil spirits and demonic fiends, countless in number, poured from the rift like a legion, marching to besiege a city. The screams from all around jolted Moran from his memories. Nearly crazed, he pushed through the chaotic, surging crowds, shouting frantically beside himself with panic, searching. Shimei! Shimei! Shimingjing! Where are you? Where are you? I don't know why the Heavenly Rift came 3 years early. I don't know if I can protect you with the strength I have now. I can't bear to see you hurt again. Can't bear to watch you die again. Please live. It's my fault. I should have gotten stronger so I could protect you right away. I was stupid. I didn't think things through. I didn't consider that this might happen. Where are you? I ran. Between the crashes of weapons, he heard a faint voice. Shimei! There he was, next to Shimei, shielding the pair of them against the onslaught of evil spirits with a screen of flowing water. Moran hurtled towards him, heedless of all else, his throat tight and his eyes stinging. You damn mutt, get over here already and help! Shimei fought with the might of 10 men, but the waves of corpses were a ceaseless tide. Beads of sweat stood up on his forehead as he said through gritted teeth, Hurry up! He didn't need to say any more. Moran leapt into the air with a flash of red as Jingyu answered his summons. He brandished the willow vine, and the holy weapon annihilated an entire row of the vicious ghosts in a single lash, transforming them into dust in an instant. Moran turned his head to yell at Shimei's direction. Stay close, get behind me. I want to go help Shizun. Don't move. The words struck unadulterated fear into Moran's heart. Under no circumstances would he allow Shimei anywhere near Chuaning in this battle. Not this time. Memories from his past life overlaid and bled into the scene before him. Back then he had said the same thing. I want to go help Shizun. All right, go quickly. You'll be safer over there than with Shizun. Stay close and let him protect you. Let him protect you. How absurd. Chuaning. Moran had planned and calculated for every possibility, but he had forgotten to consider that this person was Chuaning, cold-blooded and heartless, head full of the common people, but not a whit of care for his own dying disciple. Don't go over there. He can take care of himself. Moran's head felt numb from the overlapping visions of 2 lifetimes. Eyes bloodshot, he roared at Shimei. Don't move. Stay right here. But Shizun expended so much of his strength just now. He'll live. Worry about yourself. Moran scowled darkly and directed another powerful lash at the surging waves of the undead, sending flesh and blood flying and clumps of brain matter spattering across the ground. Oh. His current level of spiritual power was a far cry from the heights he'd achieved in his past life, but the forms and movements came to him like second nature. After all, his body had seen countless battles and had crossed blades with the likes of Ye Wangxi and Chu Wanning. He fought fearlessly, undaunted in the face of the savage undead in their millions. The rift in the sky grew. The fiends that had been confined within the infinite hells for centuries poured into the mortal realm with a violent deluge. They mixed with the walking corpses of Butterfly Town that had taken advantage of the strength afforded to them by the sudden influx of yin energy to struggle free of Chuaning's willow vines. The situation grew increasingly terrifying, increasingly out of control, frantic as a pot of boiling oil doused with water. The ghosts and demons snatched living people and tore into them like a swarm of locusts descending on a field of crops. Demonic encounters were a routine business for those from Shizun Peak. They could hold their own, but the same could not be said of Rufeng Sect and Biton Manor. One after another, the cultivators screamed and their blood splashed into the air. That's kind of sad. Like, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but these higher cultivators who think so highly of themselves and yet they're useless when it comes to protecting anything, it seems. Chuaning was too far away from Moran to see how he fared, but he caught sight of Ye Wangxi and Nang Gongsi among the throngs of people. For all the two of them were at odds, their fighting styles were strikingly similar. He saw Ye Wangxi toss aside his sword to summon a long bow in a flash of blue light, while Nang Gongsi's bow was like the arc of the crescent moon in his hand. The two exchanged a glance from dashing past one another to cover one side each, aiming at the descendant masses of undead corpses and drawing their bows to the fullest. They let fly at practically the same instant, the white of the arrows fletching, cleaving through the skies with a sound like the screeching of birds. The arrows were tempered with spiritual power, encased in blades of cutting wind that sliced through the air and ripped through every fiend in their path. Looking rather pleased with himself, Nang Gongsi reached back for another arrow, but the quiver at his back was empty. I'm out? Are you out? Or did the delicately butterfly-boned person whose name I'm forgetting, did she maybe steal them? Here. Before his temper could begin to spark, Ye Wangxi had already tossed him another bundle of arrows. You never bring enough. Nang Gongsi scoffed, but this was hardly the time to be stubborn for the sake of appearances. He accepted the arrows, and the two of them returned to their respective battles. An hour passed in the blink of an eye. Though the cultivators beat back hordes of vicious fiends, still more flooded from the ghost realm to replace them. Li Wuxin cut down a dozen spirits in one slash, then turned to yell at Xu Zhengyong. We can't keep on like this. We have to fix the barrier. Xu Zhengyong glanced at the 4 golden arrays glowing in the distance, positioned at each of the tower's 4 cardinal points. He huffed out a breath and snapped back cross. Easy for you to say. Do you know how to fix this barrier? Do you even have anyone who knows a thing about barriers? Li Wuxin's face was sullen. Barriers aren't one of my sect's specialities. Then shut the hell up. How many Yuhungs do you think there are? Chuaning is holding down the 4 cardinal points right now, and if he lets up, those damn ghosts will rush the blockade, and everyone in Sichuan will be a goner. If we cultivators can barely hold on, how do you expect the common folk to survive? Better that Sichuan be done for than the entire cultivation world. If you don't find someone to mend the heavenly rift right now, we won't be able to anymore. Xu Zhengyong's temper flared at these words, and when he next swung his metal fan to send the powerful gale hurtling towards the vicious ghosts, he allowed it, as if by accident, to open a slice across Lu Wuxin's cheek. Guys, now is not the time to quarrel, even though I fully agree with you, Xu Zhengyong. Should the people of the lower cultivation realm die for the sake of your precious upper cultivation realm's safety? Don't put words into my mouth. I'm saying that sacrifices must be made for the greater good. If this heavenly rift had opened at my Bitan Manor, I would have gladly sacrificed my entire sect to keep the peace in the land. What a thing to say, Li Zhu. But talk is cheap. Xu Zhengyong, his tiger eyes round with fury, was so angry he could only laugh. The entrance to the ghost realm lies in my province. It's not and will never be in your Bitan Manor. no matter how many generations pass. So what? The entirety of Shizun Peak ought to sacrifice itself 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, for peace in the land? Li Zhuangzhu, you really are something. The two were locked in a stalemate, bickering as they fended off demons and fiends, when a streak of snow-white brilliance swept towards them from the western horizon. I'm assuming it's Chuaning. Before they could ascertain whether it was a fiend or a foe, not a fiend, a friend or a foe, a burst of frenzied melody descended from the clouds like a tempest, as sonorous and resonant as a deluge from the heavens, yet also like a shower of arrows. For though they spied no weapons, they felt as if the glint of blades was all around them, as if they could hear the braying of the war horses and see fire beacons lit along the walls of the distant stronghold. Kunlun Tashinjun Palace. Oh, finally, some other people have arrived. Xu Jinyung's head snapped up to gaze at the stretch of snowy radiance. At this distance, he could see that it was indeed a multitude of cultivators riding on swords, each clad in robes of frost mist silk, with peach-blossom petals drifting around them. The men and women alike had faces beautiful and gentle, their outward appearances frozen in their early 20s by virtue of their method of cultivation. Some of the Tashu Palace disciples stood on their swords. Others sat, half of them cradling pippas in their arms and half balancing guchins on their knees. Their cords streamed down from the sky above, tumultuous and frenetic, yet clear and flowing, and the spirits and undead below shrieked in agony even as they were held in place, as if trapped under an invisible net. The man leading the formation had striking features, with pale golden hair and jade green eyes. He was clothed in silken robes, the white of fresh snow, with a pendant resting on his forehead like a droplet of water. Within the collars of these robes, his neck was fair and slender, like a fragrant delicate blossom in a porcelain vase. Kunlun was a snowy, frigid land, and the fox fur draped over his shoulders atop those silken robes only added to his aura of poise and elegance. He held an exquisite pippa in his arms, and his brow was furrowed as he plucked at its strings with slender fingers, luminescent petals of peach blossoms dancing about him with every note. Imperial winds across 4 seas, waters of virtue ever clear, do not the livery of war, for today we emerge in triumph. I have tissues. Thank you for being concerned. I am very worried. But, yeah, we have half an hour left. So I don't want to say how bad can it get, because those are cursed words, but hopefully we'll be okay, because I need to go somewhere after this and I don't want to have to redo my makeup. You will need them all. Oh, great. The chord slowed, and he glanced down at Xu Jingyong and company. Yet just as the man was about to speak, an irate holler rang out from a short distance away. Mei Hong Xue, you damn mutt! Why are you of all people here? The voice belonged to Xu Meng, who had darted over and to stand under Mei Hong Xue's sword as he yelled, who now tilted his head back to curse. Of all people in the world, Kunlun Tashu Palace sent your unreliable ass? Ye Hongxi turned towards the commotion, equally irritated by the sight of that man with his pippa and his fluttering flower petals and snowflakes. They sent him? I love how everyone is just having a moment of commiseration over the choice of personal sense. But also, there's a beautiful illustration here that I need to show you guys, so give me a second. Ta-da! Excuse my terrible nails, but yes, It is absolutely stunning. Um, but remember, everything will be okay, mostly. Shimeng is our king. What? Nanggongse asked. Another acquaintance of yours? I wouldn't call him an acquaintance. Yuangshi was himself less than pleased to encounter Mei Hanshi, but unlike Shimeng, who had stomped over to cuss him out, Yuangshi turned on his heel to leave immediately. Just fought him once. Oh? Nanggongse's curiosity was piqued. How is he? Any good? Why does that sound so weird? Yuangshi sneered coldly. He had women to do all the fighting for him. How do you think he is? Nanggongse stared, speechless. Okay. Chapter 96. This venerable one's hatred born in this life. Oh no, no. Why does that sound like... That sounds very much like Shimei is about to die again. I'm scared. How much time do we have left? Still plenty of time for this book to murder me. It was hardly surprising that Ye Wangxi despised Mei Hanshi. This man was none other than that Da Shishong from Peach Blossom Springs, who'd had innumerable female cultivators cooing over him and squabbling jealously for his attention. Nanggongse had initially assumed that this new arrival was some powerful character, but he turned out to be a pretty boy who relied on his looks. His initial interest vaporized in an instant, and he turned back to the battle at hand. Mei Hanshi glanced at Shimeng, a flicker of exasperation in his gaze, but did not deign to respond. His brows dipped, and his fingers danced over the strings of the pipa. At the sound of the notes, the 100 cultivators of Tashi Palace spread out in all directions. Guqin Division play the song of Al-Qaid. Pipa Division perform the nullification dance. On his command, the ensemble changed its changed its tune. A cascade of chords played strong and fast, blending into a resounding refrain that scattered the clouds. Immediately the hordes of demonic fiends ceased their fighting and stood in place with necks outstretched and hollow stares on their ghastly faces. Liu Xin was reminded that those of Kunlun Tashu Palace was not only masters of music, but also knew something of barrier mending. He tilted his head up and yelled, delighted, "Honored nephew, Mei, would you happen to know how to mend the heavenly rift?" Mei Hanshi ignored that distasteful address of honored nephew and addressed, "The heavenly rift of the infinite hells is beyond my abilities." Then Yibushin's face paled. Then he swept his sleeve and sighed gustily. "Hanshi, what about a barrier around Butterfly Town? Would you be able to hold that down?" Shi Jingyong spoke up. Sushin Peak and Tashu Palace had always been on friendly terms, and Mei Hanshi, seeing a familiar senior, bowed courteously. "I can try." "Great." Shi Jingyong slapped his hands together. "You go guard the barrier at the cardinal directions, make sure the demons don't escape, and call Yu Heng back." "The Yu Heng elder?" "Oh, my damn memory. I forgot you've never met Yu Heng. Don't worry, you'll know him when you see him. Just look for the person maintaining the barrier right now." "Understood." Mei Hanshi, cool and collected, sailed off towards the outskirts of the town with a tilt of his sword, like a shooting star upon the wind. Why am I getting the feeling that, it's not gonna be, like, something's happened to Chuaning? I'm probably overthinking it, but just because he said it so vaguely, I'm like, oh, you'll recognize him. It's the person who's maintaining the barrier right now. It leaves room open for a misunderstanding of like, oh, but this person was holding open the barrier. I thought this was the Yuheng Elder. Oh, it's not? You know, let me not stress about that right now. There's nothing I can do about it. I think it's just a stupid speculation. Nanhong knocked 3 arrows onto his bow and loosed them in 3 directions at once. Amidst the thrumming of the bowstrings, he saw Mei Hanxue shoot past with a speed and grace as the rest of the disciples from Tashi Palace suppressed the enemy with mellifluous chords. He was surprised despite himself. The person seems quite capable after all, he said to Yuanxi. Why did you call him a pretty boy who relies on women to fight his battles? Yuanxi, somewhat baffled himself, had no immediate answer. But the fiends were moving sluggishly now, presenting an ideal opportunity to destroy them, so he didn't waste time thinking about it. Perhaps he didn't go all out against me back then, he offered, then turned back to the enemy and said no more. With 4 of the 10 great sects now on the scene, the fight against the Heavenly Rift became somewhat less desperate, but the battle was still a harrowing one. I'm wondering if the person that just went to help Chuaning is not the actual Mei Hanxi. Okay, let me stop. Although the fiends presently on the ground were immobilized by the cords of the Taishu Palace, more oozed and shrieked and howled from the bloody ironing to the ghost realm with each passing minute. The force from the Taishu Palace had taken up position in midair, but they couldn't defend themselves while playing. Thus the demonic fiends rushed towards the Papa and Guchin players where they hung between the clouds. The Tashi Palace disciples had no choice but to divert some of their numbers to play a song of defense. The song of suppression and exorcism weakened at once, and the masses of fiends on the ground resumed their furious rampage. Worse still, as the portal of the ghost realm yawned wider, several high-level demons consumed enough yang energy from the mortal realm to cast off their fetters and cross the rift, dragging their chains and shackles behind them. This is terrifying. These creatures were nothing like the minor fiends that preceded them. They were possessed of both their corpses and resentful souls. Oh, wonderful. And were far more powerful and vicious, well beyond the scope of what an average cultivator could handle alone. In an instant, some hapless stragglers were slammed to the ground in a single strike, their chests pierced through by bony claws. Blood spattered across the ground with a wet squelch as the high-level demons ripped out their cultivators' hearts, rich with spiritual energy. Oh, great! As if things weren't bad enough before. I honestly don't know how on earth they are gonna salvage the situation. The fiends bit greedily into them, red blood gushing out and streaming down the rotting flesh of their faces. Soon their mouths were bloody and dangling with gore, and the demons grew even stronger, plunging into the crowd and seeking their next meal like beasts of prey. All hell broke loose. Set arrays and form groups, Shizun Yong shouted. Stay together, don't run off. But some of the cultivators were already overcome by fear, running around in hysterics, screaming and crying as they fled in all directions. The stench of blood grew thick in the air. Demonic fiends swept forward like the tide, and the corpses of the dead piled high. Nampong Se was fully engaged in combat, letting fly arrow after arrow, when a hardened ghost, in its blood-red tongue dangling from its mouth, rushed forward and latched onto him. It raised its claw, aiming straight for his chest. When Yuanxi turned and saw, the color drained instantly from his usually composed face. He was too far away. "Asu! Gongzi!" In the nick of time, Song Chitong sprang forward with her sword and stabbed the hanged ghost in the arm, but she'd never killed a person before. much less a ghastly fiend like this. Fear overtook her, and the long sword fell from her hand and clattered to the ground. The hand ghost lunged at her in fury. Namkong's traded bow for sword as he stepped forward to her. As he stepped before her to block its attack. Get away from here, hurry! Song Chitong's eyes glistened with tears. Chitong's life was saved by Rufeng's sect. This one cannot possibly leave. Namkong had little experience with women, but when he saw her delicate demeanor and the determination in her eyes, he felt as if his heart was being squeezed. He cursed under his breath. Yewangshi! Yewangshi, get the hell over here! Look after her for me! Yewangshi was spattered with blood, his handsome face stained with grime and filth. He clapped a hand around Song Chitong's arm and said harshly, Go find Qin Shizun and stick with him. I'm not leaving. I can help, she pleaded. Young master, I want to stay with you. Yewangshi, make sure you protect her. If this woman survives and the two of them don't, because of the thoughts that we've seen from Moran, I'm going to be very disappointed because I still don't feel like I can trust her. And maybe it's unfair of me to judge her for actions that she hasn't taken yet, but Yewangshi's face darkened. Upstanding gentleman that he was, he rarely displayed such anger. Namkongsi, the syllables of that name came out trembling, broken. You must have lost your mind. Then turning his back on the other two, he took up his sword and vaulted away, back into the surging masses of undead. High-level demons continued to emerge, and they cut through the crowd like daggers, slicing open the stomach of a fish and peeling off its scales, glistening and sticky with blood, rising and falling. Ugh! It was every man for himself as the fiends surrounded the living. These creatures wanted nothing more than to devour each and every one of them and drag them into the infinite hells. Moran, Shimeng, and Shimei fought back to back against the demons on all sides, but the space that had cleared around them shrank rapidly as the enemy pressed in. There was a wet sound as Shimeng sheared the arms of a fierce fiend, and its foul blood fountained several feet into the air. The fiends assailing them saw at once that Shimeng was a threat, and circled around towards Shimei instead. Shimei's hands formed a spell sign, but his spiritual energy was being rapidly depleted, and the brightness of the water lights array from before him flickered. I'm stressed. At this rate, Moran knew they wouldn't be able to hold out much longer. He made up his mind. Shimei, put up a shield array. Shimeng, get in. What? Shimeng was immediately incensed. You're telling me to be a wuss? Just listen to me and get in. This isn't the time to worry what you look like. Look around. You think we can kill this many ghosts? Aran, said Shimei. What are you going to do? Stop asking questions, just do as I say. Moran softened his tone. It'll be all right. The clearing around them contracted further. Quickly. Moran urged. There's no more time. Shimei had little choice. He adjusted his hand, sealed to raise a layer of blue shield array around Shimei and himself. When he saw the array was complete, Moran unsheathed the dart concealed in his sleeve and slashed it across his palm, then sprinkled the array with his own blood to mark it with his spiritual energy. His gaze dark, he called out in a low voice, Get to work. Jiang He flared bright at his words. The weapon grew in length by tens of feet, each leaf like a sharp dagger hanging from the willow vine as it blazed with scarlet spiritual energy. Moran closed his eyes, recalling the sight of Chuaning unleashing his killing technique. When he opened them again, his eyes reflected the innumerable ghastly fiends closing in on them. I'm stressed. He whipped Jiang Yu high above his head, sparks erupting off the vine, and rained down at Moran as Moran held up his arm, his sleeve buffeted by the wind. In that moment, his silhouette seemed to overlap with Chuaning's in his mind, the two moving in perfect synchronicity. Wind. A burst of force ravaged the land and stirred the very clouds above, pulling low the sky itself. Behind Moran, Shimeng and Shimei watched as an enormous light array bloomed scarlet like a red lotus from hell, and fierce gales sliced the ground like formless blades. Jiang Ye whirled, a blur in Moran's hand. Dust and debris swirled into the air, and the overwhelming force pulled the fiends into the maelstrom and ground them to mince. Chuaning's wind range, killing technique, wind array. Moran could use it this well. By the time the tempest calmed, the area was scoured bare, I think. When Moran turned around, it was to the shocked expressions of Shimeng and Shimei, but he was in no mood to celebrate. He felt only that he was far from what he needed to be. If his cultivation level now was anywhere close to what it had once been, a fracture in the ghost realm barrier would be a trifling matter. Look, over there, a voice suddenly shouted in the distance. All raised their heads to see several contingents high in the sky, riding in on swords from every horizon, each group in distinct dress and shrouded in distinct spiritual energies. At least they are getting reinforcement, but at the same time, like, is it gonna be enough? It seemed the opening of the heavenly rift of the infinite hells had finally spurred the sects of the upper cultivation realm to action. Their glowing swords touched down on one after another, a massive influx of reinforcements. Here were the graceful and charming personas from the Rainbow Isle. There were the solemn and dignified monks of the Wu-Bei temple, and so on. Finally, the 10 great sects had all joined the fray. Increasingly stronger demons were crossing into the world like the endless swarms of locusts. But with the sudden arrival of support, the cultivators on the ground were no longer so outmatched. At the same time, Mei Hanshi and Chuaning at least completed the spiritual transfer, and the color of the barrier anchored at the cardinal directions of the town shifted from gold to blue. Chuaning left guarding the borders to Mei Hanshi and rode the wind into the center of the battle, alighting gracefully where the fighting was most fierce. He looked up at the rift in the sky. By now it was open wide, and the immeasurable and terrifying evil was vaguely perceptible within. The insane strength of this entity was practically palpable, as if it had drunk the blood and consumed the brains of millions. Ooh. The barrier needed to be sealed now, or that great evil presently suppressed within the infinite hells would break free and cross onto the mortal realm. Chuaning couldn't help but wonder if that was the whole point. Was this what the person behind the scenes was after? Did he wish to unleash some kind of great evil from hell onto this world? But to what end? Shizun! Shimei called anxiously after him. Chuaning turned towards his voice. Memories from the past life once again overlaid the present scene. Wait, what? Come again? Chuaning's past memories? That he's only been able to access via his dreams up until now? Am I missing something? Or is this still from Moran's perspective? Shizun. Shimei had called for him the same way back then. Then too Chuaning had turned towards his voice. Shimei panted in the snow, covered in blood and grime, but his eyes were firm and determined. Shizun, are you going to mend the heavenly rifts? But that's not just a fracture. That's a fracture into the infinite hells. Shizun, how will you manage by yourself? Chuaning did not answer immediately. Let me help. I'll learn some defensive skills at Peach Blossom Springs. and won't get in Shizun's way. Even now, he could almost hear that exchange that had determined life and death so many years ago. Okay, it's from Moran's perspective still. Oh, I see, okay. Moran's blood ran cold and his head went numb. Without warning, he grabbed Shimei and pulled him behind his own body. Then he pushed him towards Shimeng and yelled, Shizun, keep an eye on him. Look after him. Shimeng's eyes widened. You're going somewhere, Mutt? The wind picked up, carrying with it the stench of blood. In the sky there were no flurries of snowflakes. At least some things were different from the last lifetime. Moran's gaze landed on Shimei's lost and helpless figure. He felt his heart clench, but then fill with relief. This barrier could not be mended by Chuaning alone. But save for his 3 disciples, no one else was sufficiently familiar with his spiritual cultivation to work together with him in rapport. One of them had to go. The wind rushed fiercely through the battlefield, sweeping across thousands of miles of desperate slaughter. Moran braced himself, then pulled Shimei into his arms. It was the first time he had ever embraced him like this, so openly and directly. He held him for a breath, and then abruptly shoved him away. Shimei, this time, I'm afraid the one who dies will have to be me. I'll help Shizun seal the barriers, Moran declared in a tone that brooked no argument. He narrowed his eyes, directing another deep, meaningful gaze at Shimei. Suddenly he didn't care what others might think, didn't care that Shimei was right there, didn't care that he might be rejected. He had waited 2 lifetimes, loved for 2 lifetimes, and now he was leaving, possibly never to return. Standing in the ferocious wind, he wanted to say a few final words to his beloved. This feels like an exact reflection of the previous, of Moran's previous life, but just in reverse. Shimei, actually but as he opened his mouth to speak, his words were drowned out by the howls of vicious fiends. That fleeting impulse, boiling hot as lava, grew cold in that space of a moment. In the end it fizzled out. Aran, did you want to say something? A reflection from his past life flitted across Moran's eyes. He saw Shimei's gentle smile from behind that half-raised curtain. How cruel it had been. It had stayed with him all his life, even until death. It was everywhere he looked. Moran grinned, the rims of his eyes a little red. Never mind. Good things can't be said twice. You're really gonna leave him with that? With the same things that tortured you in your previous life? Shimei said, Shimei have his... No, he wouldn't have his past memories, no. I'm off to go help Shizun. When I come back, if I still feel like telling you, his dimples were deep, his gaze filled with love, I'll tell you then. With that, he turned and sped towards Chuaning. Shimei wouldn't die this time. Not in front of him, at least. Moran suddenly felt that the sky was more boundless and the ground more vast. He imagined that the figure before him, white robes bellowing, would be the end point of this reborn life of his Shizun, who held the world in his heart. As Shimei lay dying, for the sake of completing the repairs of the barrier, for the sake of purging the rampaging fiends, Chuaning had ruthlessly chosen to turn his back on him. This time the one to mend the barriers with Chuaning would be Moran. Chuaning despised him so much, disliked him so much, there was no way he'd cast aside his esteemed reputation as the Baidu immortal to spare a thought for the life or death of his insignificant self. I'm stressed, because we kind of know that might not be true. Shizun, Moran came to a stop in front of him, Jiang Ye glowing in his hand. This barrier is hard to repair, let me help. The situation was dire. Chuaning shot him a wordless glance, tacit assent. He leapt up to stand at the highest point of the Qin manor, Moran following at his heels. Set the discernment barrier, Chuaning said. Moran moved in accordance with him, following his instructions. One turned to the left and one to the right, the tips of their fingers glowing with the seal of the discernment barrier as they lifted their hands to the air in concert. Invoke. Spiritual energy streamed from their bodies at the invocation. The pair worked as one, each holding down a vital grounding point of the array, and used their surging power to form a scarlet gold barrier. As the barrier expanded outward, any demonic fiend it touched shrieked as if burned and fled back into the eye of the ghost realm. The barrier grew clearer and clearer, brighter by the second, and below their feet rose a pair of coiled dragon platforms composed of spiritual energy, which lifted the two high into the sky above the town. Before the glaring gold and scarlet light of the barrier, the ghost eye gradually began to close, yet at the same time, the resentful spirit within the rift grew more frantic, refusing to yield. With each inch of closure, the resentful energy spilling from the fissure intensified, and by the time the edge of the barrier was mere miles from the rift, the corruption emanating from its depth was almost a physical thing. Moran's reborn body felt as if a heavy weight had settled over his shoulders, like an immense rock weighing 1,000 tons pressed against his chest. He struggled to breathe. Across from him, Chuaning's spiritual energy was strong and steady, streaming into the barrier without cease. 1 inch, another. Gales whipped around them the gales whipping around them were thick with corruption, intensifying and converging on their position. Moran felt as if numberless daggers were digging into his flesh and bones. Shizun. As his consciousness began to fade, memories from the past again flitted before his eyes. He saw Shimei and Chuaning working together to repair the barrier. It was mere seconds before the world of yin and yang would be separated once more. The vicious ghosts, soon to again be deprived of yang energy, saw that Shimei's side was much weaker. They clattered together and charged toward Shimei as one. In an instant, Shimei, who had been doing his utmost to maintain the balance of the barrier, was pierced through. Now the scene played out again, almost move for move. Only this time, the one whose heart was run through by 1,000 ghosts was Moran. A cascade of demonic fiends broke through the heavenly cloud cover and punched through Moran's chest in a flash. Red swam before Moran's eyes. It took him a moment to register that it was his own blood bursting from his chest. Drowning in the suffocating stream, he restrained to turn towards Chuaning, only to see the man's pristine white robes and cold, impassive face turned away, not even sparing him half a glance. Resentment flooded his chest. It settled into deep hatred. Moran fell from the coiled dragon platform, blood seeping from the corners of his lips. Chest dyed a deep crimson. The fall took only a moment, but it felt like an eternity. Like a drowning person sinking slowly to the bottom of the sea, never again to hear the soft whispers of the living world. Chuaning hadn't lifted a single finger on his behalf. He hadn't tried to stop the attack. He couldn't even be bothered to look. As Moran fell, his scarlet spiritual energy dissipated, and just as the previous lifetime, Chuaning chose to pour the remains of his power into the portion of the barrier that Moran wasn't able to mend, and by dint of his strength alone, forced the barrier shut with a thunderous bang. I hate this so much. Hi. The fiends left on the side of the gate, cut off from the energy of the ghost realm, fell immediately into a mad rampage against the cultivators. They mowed through the innumerous living souls in mere moments, and utterly annihilated the formation of several sects. Chuaning descended. When Moran fell, a layer of light had materialized beneath the coiled dragon pillar to cushion his fall. His chest had been pierced through, and blood pooled on the ground beneath him, just as Shimei's had back then. Chuaning beat back the fiends that rushed towards Moran, and with a backhanded wave, dropped the protective barrier around him. Shizun. Of blood, but a grin spread across his face. Are you leaving again? Outside the flaming golden barrier, the person continued to stand with his back to him. Moran opened his mouth, but his throat was filled with the taste of iron. Chuaning, are you made of wood? Do you even know what it's like to feel sad, to be selfish? Do you? Chuaning, Chuaning. Moran's vision blurred. He was covered in wounds from the battle. Blood streamed from a cut on his forehead and flowed into his eyes, and he threw his head back and laughed wildly into the skies above. Laughed as if he had gone mad. Bloody tears slid down his face. His voice broke on a sob. Chuaning, turn around and look at me. Are you really going to leave? Won't you look at me one last time? I'm dying. Back then, when it was Shimei, you at least spared him a glance. Do you truly dislike me this much? Look down on me this much? Why else would you refuse to look at me? Just one last time. Why won't you turn around? Shizun. His eyes brimmed with blood and tears. The last thing he saw through the golden barrier was the white robed back of that lone figure as he strode away to go suppress demons. In the end, it turned out that in that man's heart there was no one less important than Morwayu. I hate this so much. Because I'm kind of assuming that the reason why he didn't turn around because he couldn't bring himself to. Because if he did, he wouldn't be able to go on. But I'm gonna end it there because we're at the end of a chapter, and frankly, I can't bring myself to keep reading right now. But yeah, we're finishing off on page 102. Wow! We did 50 pages. How did that happen? Okay, but yeah. So I'll see you guys again on Tuesday. I can't believe we have to wait, what, 5 days before we find out what happens next? I'm assuming he's gonna be reborn just because, you know, we're not even halfway through the novel, so something has to happen, but what's frustrating about it is the fact that because of what happened in the previous lifetime, it's just gonna solidify Moran's belief that Chuaning doesn't care for him. So that's very frustrating. I'm terrified of what's gonna happen in the next lifetime. I'll see you guys there. The Jin.